Being happy, engaged, and productive is not only about doing what you love, but also being the person who you love in yourself. Welcome to the 360 Degrees Growth Podcast. Here you learn about leading authentically. You'll hear stories from leaders about leading authentically at home, work, and community, and how that led them to a fulfilling and prosperous life. Welcome to a new episode of 360 Degrees Growth Podcast, the Leading Authentically podcast. Today we have a great leader, a great personality from the Middle East, Mr. Soraka Alkhatib. Soraka, how are you today?
Alhamdulillah, things are fine.
Wonderful.
It's an honor to be honestly with you.
Thank you, Soraka. Of course, Soraka, we've known each other for a couple of years, and you're one of the personalities that really catches the heart and catches the mind as well. So I'm
Likewise.
looking forward to a deep conversation. So before we get started, let's do a quick check-in. How do you feel at this moment, and what are your intentions for this podcast?
Uh, Beautiful weather's now in Riyadh. Honestly, it's a bit cold and chilly, and that gives me very nice vibes. Honestly, to really put a good intention for the podcast. And I said to me, if I have a window of opportunity to address an issue to solve for, what would that be? And I think from here, that's where I want to start solving for that problem. And I want to use today's podcast to deliver that message. How can we help the young generation in crossing the chasm and transforming to the network era or the avatar era?
Nice. So one thing catches my eye is your title, corporate nomad. What don't you tell me about this title, and tell me a little bit also about your background?
Uh, okay, so Soraka Alkhatib. I was raised in boarding schools, but then once I came about to choose university, it was at that point of time easy, engineering or med. That was the dimension to which we could have decided. And I think from there, that's where I witnessed how did I move into going into assignments and jobs to really understand where is it the way I would approach the life moving forward. So when I started with PNG, and I think that was the first pivot through which I really engaged into the real world. But then the question was, after 2 to 3 years, what am I and where am I going on from here? And I think that was a moment in time that really addressed that challenge. How would I move forward from here? Am I going to continue? So that breakage of every 3 to 5 years became a philosophy. And then that's where I ventured across different engagement sectors and what have you. So I discovered that's where I became a corporate nomad because I worked in public sector, private sector, entrepreneur. So that whole dimension of sector diversification and industry diversification gave me that. So to become like a corporate nomad, how can you navigate within corporations and
Nice.
setting them on?
So I know from our previous conversations that you've gone through a self-discovery, self-transformation, and growth. Can you tell us about how did that start, and where are you in your self-discovery and growth at this moment?
Whoa, it was beautiful, honestly, experience, and that may be one of the things I came about from this experience is uh, how to meet the person behind the mirror, and to me that evolved from this spiritual journey. Is how can you go into that stillness to an extent where you meet the person behind the mirror. That's where you meet the true you. So that journey, it honestly started only with trekking, and once you start spending more time in the if you will the wilderness, then taking like Hoffman process to understand the quadrinity theory and how it changes you, and then you do the vipassana meditation of 10 days of complete silence for 100 hours of meditation. So all those are moments where you're getting more stillness to spend time with yourself, and that's where you meet the person behind the mirror.
So here we're talking about the person behind the mirror is yourself that you haven't seen yet. It's the person that you're looking inward instead of looking outward at other people and so forth. So, what triggered this transformation? Is it a specific event or experience that you've gone through that triggered this self-discovery journey?
Uh, I think it was always uh, uh, the ability to understand oneself because through my upbringing, I mean, starting from boarding school from the second grade. So I think there was multiple layers of seeing the world differently, especially we started in the analog world, and then I witnessed moving into the digital world.
Mhm.
And then that's where I triggered the people in the digital era. They're born in a different perspective. And that is to me is so how I went in through that's where it starts getting me to. So how would we help the new generation to make those decisions to cross and deal with the new world? Because everybody is really wondering how is the world going. So whatever we're facing, I want to just help out the young generation to make the crossing the chasm and making sure they're prepared for the new challenges that or new era we're living in.
Absolutely. And I remember we've talked, I think, a few months ago, and you talked me about uh, your passion to help the youth, young kids, in finding themselves, finding that person behind the mirror. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that and your role in and what kind of you told me about a campaign that you have and you're trying to promote, to tell people more about, and hopefully that'll help them in their journey as well.
Yes, I mean, to me, what I witnessed is, or actually, let's start this way. I want to call for an Earth Reflection Day where the whole world disconnects from technology for one full day to reflect between the person behind the mirror and the avatar and to identify that now two of them exist. And you have to identify, first understand yourself to be present in the avatar. Because this is one of the formulation of how we're living in this world moving onward, where people now spend 8 hours online and 8 hours sleeping and 8 hours face to face. Now, in that means 50% of their information is in the rabbit hole. And that's because of the post-pandemic where we expedited it. If somebody is by the age of 10, by the age of 6, he was living in solitude, consuming only content. So once we understand the magnitude of the screen time versus a face time and how this young generation coming socially incompetent or doesn't how to have anxiety to deal with society. My son tells me, Baba, now I use pattern to know how to make the right connection between my friends because pattern would tell me. So this is the generation that they're transitioning into a different world. So to me, if you look from their eye, where they're born behind the screen or behind this era after the internet, so that means they are just consumed from the avatar, and the avatar is not reality. Then here, how can you solve for the reality by coming with the seven commandments? And that's where I created a full journey, including the tree of life, to explain how this all thing come together to help them transition.
Thank you, Soraka. Um, and of course this podcast is all about authenticity and authentic leader, where people know exactly what their value, they know their purpose in this world, and lead from that space, and having that connection, screen time all in front of us all the time, I think that creates a lot of confusion, uncertainties, when it comes to authenticity. It's I think I do agree with you that children nowadays looking at other people more than they look at themselves. I think when in our generations, when we were younger, we had time to play out. We had time to reflect. We had time to do nothing, right? And nowadays, it's just people don't have a chance, especially children don't have a chance. They fill their space all the time grabbing the phone and either looking at other people and looking at content, whatever the content they're consuming nowadays, and we don't know if it's healthy or not. Um, why don't you tell me a little bit about the seven commandments that you just mentioned?
Yeah. Uh, so to me, when my son graduated, I said, what better gift would I give him other than the seven commandments for him to really say, this is what I would really give you, if I'll summarize life to you. And those are the seven commandments, and that's where I try to explain to him, if you want to navigate in life, these would be the seven things you would have to do. The first is al-haya rihla wa mahattat. Life is a journey with stations. So if you just change your perspective, that you're not going an uphill, it's just a long journey where you break it into bite sizes. And by this, I start developing the program, which I call the Human Transformation Journey. So how to break your life into multiples of five, and that's where you start moving from company, and that's where the corporate nomad comes in to develop which muscle. But that's the first part. And then والرجال والإنسان مواقف وأفعال. So at the end of the day, man of action, get things done. So in the context of that, that's where you deliver upon your promises. والقرارات تضحيات بين أولويات. To me, decisions are sacrifices against your priorities. So the real decision is not what you're deciding, it's what actually you're letting go. So that's the real decision. والقيادة سبب ومسؤولية. Leadership is a responsibility, the ability to choose your response. And that's where you explain the whole idea between how you deal with this. والنجاح منهج وقرار. Success is a decision, it's not a result. And that's where you change the perspective. والسعادة رضا وقناعة. And happiness at the end of the day is the content. And here you explain the passion, purpose, and pleasure, the three P's. And the last thing, وما توفيقي إلا بالله. At the end of the day, believe in grace, and again, do whatever your best, and just move with the right intention. And that's here where I hook the intentions with a North Star. And that's how you start creating for the young generation, the stages of the next 5 years, by changing the cycle from going through it to intending it, and following your intuition, and skipping the thinking part for the biases.
Beautiful. Looking at these seven commandments, easier said than done. That's that comes to mind. So, if you would give that recommendation to the youth, to the young leaders nowadays, where should they start?
And this is exactly what I'm addressing now with my two boys, 24 and 22, and just both of them graduated. And the question is, where should we go from here, Dad? And it's exactly the question I was solving for, which is, in my time, it was easy. I mean, engineer, move into PNG. So it was not a lot of options. 70% of the future jobs are not invented yet. So what are we teaching our kids? And to them, Dad, I really don't know what is work like. I mean, pandemic, keep that in mind. And then they were starting in boarding schools, pandemic, till they graduated outside. And when they came back, yeah, to them, we're aliens. And that's what I said, how can I help them now to navigate? And that's what I start giving them the human transformation journey. First is telling them, don't solve for the big problem. Break it into bites of threes, or 3 to 5s. And that's where your passion fills. So my eldest son loves football. Now he's doing masters in sports entertainment. So something that would help him be in the industry and understand a cause. And once you give him a North Star that he addresses, now Saudi Arabia is hosting 2034 World Cup. So I tell him, put your North Star, how to study the economics of sports entertainment, that Saudi gets the World Cup. So once now he understands, and then he breaks into bite sizes. All you need is just the next 3 years to develop the muscle. Then take another step. And then it will be the sum of all those experiences. My second son, again, he graduated, but I don't know where I really want to work. Go to consultancy. Why? Because all your mission is 3 years. Just to understand. And you put it within, after 3 years, you're going to move. But at least you fulfilled an objective. And that objective and then becomes your North Star. then what kind of industry. So that's how you help them just to navigate. But at the end of the day, honestly, is to help them to cross the chasm. It's not easy. The life speed in the world they're living in versus our in real time, in our time, our information were like this, but our face-to-face time and experience social like this. They are exactly the opposite. Their face time is like this, but their knowledge is like this, but from a rabbit hole. So they have a different world that they see than the world we've lived in, and we've seen the transition. And my concern, we're the last generation. When we die, we're the last generation before those who born behind the screens, the post-pandemic. They are born in a different world. They are born in the matrix.
Thank you for listening to our 360 Degrees Growth podcast. If you'd like to know more about situational leadership training, please email us at info@consulting360d.com. And I love that when you said, find your purpose, find what you want to do, find what you're passionate about. And we know being authentic is finding that and finding a lot more about yourself, finding your values, finding what wakes you up in the morning, that's something that you're passionate about. So what is Soraka's passion? What wakes you up in the morning and helps you get going?
And that's definitely was part of the experience I went. I mean, I started my career as electronics and communication engineer, moved into P&G manufacturing for 5 years, then moved again for one of the high net worth development company in Saudi to establish the real estate where I know nothing of. But again, that's where I jumped to learn, develop marketing. Then I moved to asset management for 5 years. And then I moved to establish the real estate in the NCB bank in Saudi. So that was totally shifting into another industry, and then moving from there to being an entrepreneur for 5 years and setting up U-Turn as a co-founder and transitioning and becoming Endeavor entrepreneur. But then from there, I said, okay, how can I serve back into the country? That's where I moved back into the Ministry of Housing as Director General, overseeing some of the responsibility. And then from there, I moved to McKinsey and Elixir, which is an implementation consultancy. So to me, when I looked at that, they were all putting me, and the question was to me, what's next, Soraka? Till I really spending time at P&G, and over there, it was an at McKinsey, it was an awakening moment to understand what is your purpose of what you're doing. And that was a moment in time where reaching my 50 years. So to me is what is really what do I want to solve for? And here I really started the journey of trying to figure out what's my North Star and how to understand my North Star. And here I came about وعلم ينتفع به, like giving back as of ilm, leaving a legacy, honestly, of whatever knowledge you have to really pass it on. So to me, I wanted them to say from here, I want to disrupt education, do something to change. And from there, I happened to go to Ilmi. I was the CEO for one of the subsidiaries of MISC as Ilmi, where we developed the Science Discovery and Innovation Center strategy post-pandemic. What would that look like? So to me, it started fulfilling that I really want to serve that generation. And now I'm putting my purpose, honestly, is how to awaken the young generation from the pandemic and what happened into them, to awaken them to reflect for one day. And we use that one day of Earth Reflection Day to disconnect from technology and try to understand who are we, and identify the person in the avatar and the real you, but then ground yourself. And this is what I'm saying. You have to have a North Star that's grounded in values, anchored by faith, and with an intention towards the North Star. And once you create this, you get away from the fear of what could happen, because it's about navigating in life. It's about going with the flow. I always look upon my corporate experience as like a journey. I started with P&G as if you're in a stream of water. So even in a canoe, if you cannot go right and left because systems are so strong, But then when I entered into the local business, like I'm in a pond. If I do not paddle, it does not move on. And then you start going into where I moved to the bank to establish the real estate. That's where it starts. Things got wavy because now you get more different experiences, and then till you moved into entrepreneurial. And to me, that's where I felt now I'm at the top of the cliff and I jumped. But then the experience of the entrepreneurial towards the end, when I looked around, I said, guess what? I didn't fall. I didn't fall. And that was the moment where I discovered, which is, that's the corporate nomad. That's the moment where I said, then start clipping your wings and start moving and lifting those experiences. And that's what I discovered. Whatever I was going through at the time was pains, but they were actually developing my muscles to navigate and develop those muscles. So to me, that's how I started changing it. And then my North Star became how can I help the generation to be awakened and help them to cross the chasm safely by having values, 7 commandments. And actually, the 7 commandments, my brother has his own, and I wanted to create an application where everybody shares their 7 commandments. It's not about mine, but it's about leaving to this generation. If you Zahi, as a father, would love to leave 7 commandments to your kids, what would those be? That would be the question that I want to leave to all those young generations coming in the future, a window to see how life used to look before the pandemic. Even I wanted to do an anime. It's all about like frames, and it helps to connect between those to see. So this is the last generation. We can show them an anime, how we used to do some flight bookings. How we used to do that. As simple as that. We used to go on telex. So just giving them frames. So it's comical, a bit like the Simpsons, but it's all about frames of the past. As the window closes, they can see the past, and recreate actually the I'm trying to develop. The first is the person behind the mirror, to introduce this logic and the tree of life, so to understand how you understand to meet the person behind the mirror. The second part is the birth of the avatar, explaining how the avatar now is born and how we transition from agriculture era to industrial era to the network era to the avatar era, and how would we be now we're formulating the final game plan, which is moving into the metaverse. And what is the metaverse in simplistic manner? So people don't understand that we witnessed an inflection point at the pandemic, and that is whoever is still in that civilization, it's gone. We're moving more into immersive reality. Will blur into the digital, and you would really lose what is reality and what's not. And that is the concern that I'm trying to say, that how critical it is, that we really need to do something about it.
Soraka, I can definitely feel your passion for the subject. Thank you so much. I mean, I hope this reach out to as many people, as young people as possible. I want to go back a little bit about Soraka, about you, and ask you, how did your understanding of leadership has evolved over the past how many years since you got since your childhood, I would say. How did your understanding change of leadership, basically?
It definitely the pivotal point was at P&G, because I think that was the first introduction to the word, and then the analysis of the world and what does it mean, and then the technique behind it, and that were the awakening moment, honestly, to understand what is leadership. And they were very particular in that. So I owe it, honestly, that was the moment where I start putting the structure to it and how to do it. Prior to that, definitely, my father, I mean, in the context of, you're always seeing the leadership portrayed in this figure, and to be honest, he was that figure. I mean, so he raised the bar, if you will. So I think this was part of understanding that leadership is all about being authentic and standing true to your cause. I think that is, to me, the real leadership, is because it starts from within, and once you capture it from here, well, then and only then, yeah, people are going to follow you, but not follow you for your own, because you're addressing a cause for everybody's interest. That's the essence of leadership. And that's from there as you go along. So you definitely move and there's an excellent book which is Leadership Pipeline, and it addresses from managing managers to team leaders to managing functionaries. And in simple words, what I like about it is in early positions, you manage people with exclamation marks because you're managing them with knowledge. And in senior roles, you manage them with question marks, with challenge, because you don't know. And once you understand the difference between two and how to make it again 1 inch wide and 1 inch wide, depth into breadth, that's where you really start understanding. That's the whole essence. So you have to understand, this is to me how leadership, that's where you start going from understanding different frameworks, situational leadership, which is you identify the selling, participating, delegating. So all those starts coming together. And honestly, what really helped me is when I start using mind maps almost 20 years back. And I think the beauty of it starts creating a lot of frames in my head. And that's where I start creating these connections. And that's where after honestly 25 years more into mind maps, that's where things started in my head, start connecting things together. That's where you start creating the Sherlockology, as sometimes called, or mind palaces.
Nice. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Soraka. We are coming to an end of our time. Any final words you'd like to say?
Shukran lakum. Big thank you, honestly, and giving me that window to state. And if I'd say one thing, it's let's call for an Earth Reflection Day. One day we disconnect from technology. The whole world stands by that campaign. Like Earth Hour, let's do Earth Reflection Day. Thank you.
I'm with you on that, definitely. Before we close, I want to share a quote I was reading today. Actually, I've read it before, but today was a great reminder, and I think it's perfect for this moment. And it's a quote from Rumi. It says, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I am changing myself."
Well said.
So I love this self-reflection starting from within. It really speaks to this podcast. Soraka, thank you so much. I'm pretty sure people can find you on LinkedIn or any other social media. I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Inshallah. Shukran lakum. Thanks. It's a beautiful honor. Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to our 360 Degrees Growth Podcast. If you like our podcast, please make sure to follow our channel. Also, please like and share our episodes on social media.